Hi, I'm Charles with AniCap. The story begins as the popular kids at school make their cliche walk through the hallways as everyone gossips about them. Suzune is the student council president superstar, and some certified nerd named Kazuki is her little sidekick that's also the vice president. Some people just turn out to be the center of attention, but our average Joe ordinary protagonist doesn't consider himself one of these people. His name is Usato, and this self-hating guy just thinks of himself as a forgettable run-of-the-mill high school student. The most exciting adventure in this dude's vanilla-flavored life is returning some dumb pigeon babies to their nest. Deep down though, Usato is always hoping for an extraordinary life. Luckily for him, he is the protagonist of this anime. For now though, it's raining and Usato doesn't have an umbrella. Usato's evil side shows itself for a second as he contemplates taking someone else's, but this typical good guy decides against it, fearing the beginning of a life of crime over a $5 umbrella. This proves to be a pretty stupid decision though, as he ends up waiting for hours. Suzune appears out of nowhere and explains that all students are required to leave. This guy really is forgettable as he decides to just run home in the rain, but Suzune stops him. It would look bad for the student council to just watch him get soaked in the rain like a loser, so Kazuki arrives and lends him his spare umbrella. Usato was certain that Kazuki didn't even know of his useless existence and is even more surprised when Kazuki seems to be a nice guy. They offer to all walk home together, and Suzune points out that it must be fate that they met. Usato's nerdy mind goes right to video games as he thinks of this moment as suddenly hitting a walking home with two of the most popular kids at school event. He almost ruins this marvelous moment as he says that everyone in school will be jealous, but luckily they didn't hear his utterly embarrassing comment. On their little walk, Usato tells Kazuki that he didn't expect him to be so nice because he only ever sees this playboy rizzing up the ladies. Kazuki only talks to the girls out of pity, and Suzune roasts him by saying that he likes talking to boys better anyway. Suzune is even more unapproachable for our shy protagonist though, as she is the top of her class in all subjects and great at all sports. Usato glazes her up even more and points out that she's also beautiful inside and out. Usato, acting like some kind of dumb gossip news reporter, finally comes out and asks if they are dating since everyone at school talks about it. The walk gets pretty awkward, but they explain that they only spend so much time together because they are on the student council. Usato apologizes for the incredibly stupid question that he definitely should not have asked, but Suzune doesn't mind since it's better than talking behind their back. Their incredibly snooze-inducing conversation continues as the three then talk about what they will do when they graduate. None of these dummies have a plan yet though. Suzune is already a third year, but she has a huge problem. She still hasn't found what she wants to do, and she immediately completes any goal she sets for herself. Seemingly foreshadowing what's about to happen, Suzune explains that she feels like she doesn't belong in this world, and Usato is shocked. The two of them are totally opposite people, but he understands that feeling. This boring conversation has me wishing that Truck-kun would pay them a visit as well, but they all stop when the two student council members hear bells ringing. The ringing gets louder and louder, but Usato doesn't hear a single thing. Just as Usato approaches the others, a magic circle appears on the ground, and he wonders if it's a gate to another world. Instead of being terrified, Suzune looks like a psycho and wonders if Usato thinks they will find magic, monsters, and heroes in this other world. Usato is shocked that she's into that kind of stuff, but time is up and they are taken away. Usato eventually wakes up and finds that they are sitting in front of a king. The boys are rightfully terrified and cautious, but something is wrong with Suzune's brain as she only feels excitement. King Jerkwad has the most basic name ever and introduces himself as Lloyd. Kazuki wants to skip the introductions though and demands to know why Lloyd brought them there. Lloyd keeps his hot-headed guard from slicing Kazuki into pieces for his disrespect and reveals that he is king, as if that wasn't painfully obvious already. The kids are still shocked by this, except for Suzune, who is having the time of her life. Lloyd then reveals that they were summoned to be heroes, making all of Suzune's dreams come true. 2 years ago, this world was attacked by the King of Demons and his army. They managed to drive them off, but the Demon Lord's power has been growing. As a last resort, they called forth accomplished individuals from another world who can confront the Demon Lord using a forbidden ritual known as hero summoning. Usato tries to remind the excited Suzune that they are having a serious conversation, and Kazuki goes all crazy. He doesn't care about heroes or demon lords and is just furious that they were summoned without consent. He refuses to be isekai'd since he is not the protagonist and demands that they get sent back to their world. Unfortunately for this side character, the hero summoning only works in one direction, so they can't go back. Kazuki still wants to go back to rizzing up all the ladies back home, but the king apologizes as they are desperate for help. Kazuki's whining marathon pushes the guards to finally quiet him down by threatening to turn him from a side character to a non-existent one. Usato calms the hothead down, and the king shockingly bows before them. He promises to find them a way back eventually, but begs that these heroes help him in the meantime. Suzune finally stops fangirling over being isekai'd and wonders why the king calls them heroes, without knowing anything about them. Some little dork named Welchie explains that the hero summoning is designed to select accomplished individuals. She explains that hearing the bells ring before being summoned indicates that they are heroes. That's actually some pretty bad news for our boy Usato though, as he was the only one that didn't hear ringing, and he wonders if he was brought by accident. Wedgie then takes them to a crystal ball that measures their magical abilities. Kazuki wonders if Usato's really okay with this, but our boy's just fine, since Welchie told him that he might be able to use magic even though he isn't a hero. Kazuki thinks Usato should be more upset, but our boy isn't a whiny little dweeb like him, and he points out that they should try to be like the overly excited Suzune. She is the first to be tested, and the color of the crystal indicates her affinity for thunder magic. As if that weren't amazing enough, she also has a ton of mana. Suzune couldn't be any happier, and it is now Kazuki's turn. This guy barely touches the thing, and Wedgie is amazed when the crystal turns white. It's light magic, and Suzune is certain that it means he can shoot laser beams out of his eyes, or even better, he might be able to use swords made of light. Usato points out that Kazuki isn't a weeb like her, and probably has no clue what she is talking about, but she scolds him for having a sharp tongue. Suzune realizes that she likes his tongue that way, and Usato's perfect image of Suzune is getting ruined every time she talks. Welchie explains that light magic is incredibly rare, and few people can use it. Light repels evil, so its power is unparalleled against demons. The bar has been set pretty high by the first two, but now it's our protagonist's turn. Usato hopes that he will at least have the tiniest bit of power, as this humble kid just hopes to help Suzune and Kazuki any way he can. He is glad when his crystal actually changes color, and everyone thinks it's a soothing color. A look at Welchie though paints a totally different picture, as she is shocked by this color change, and instantly drags Usato away without saying a single thing. Welchie urgently takes him to the king, and explains that the other two have great abilities. However, she is there about something more important. The king has a good chuckle as he jokes about Usato having an affinity for dark magic, but this doofus is shut up when Welchie reveals that the crystal ball turned green. The guards are even shocked, and Welchie begins to finally say what that means. King Lloyd stops her though, as he doesn't even want her to utter those words, and Usato begins to wonder if his magic affinity is really that bad. Our boy just has to remain confused though, as the king quickly demands that Usato be taken away from the castle as quickly as possible. They try to think of the safest place to send him, and Usato wonders if he's really that dangerous. He asks if anyone else has the same magic, and there just so happens to be another person. It's a certain girl, but the king doesn't even want her name to be spoken. Unfortunately for King Coward, this girl barges in. Everyone is terrified beyond belief as we find out that her name is Rose, and she wants to know if the heroes have been summoned. The king was really hoping that she took the day off, but Rose would never do such a thing. She questions if Usato is a hero, but King Lloyd explains that he's just some nerd that got teleported there by accident. This guy desperately tries to hide the truth and tells her that Usato is super ordinary. Rose introduces herself to Usato as the captain of the kingdom's rescue team, but our boy feels that this angry chick is more like the type to take lives, not save them. Wedgie might be a genius because she diffuses the situation and offers to take Rose to the real heroes in the crystal room. Unfortunately, Usato's an idiot that can't read the room and asks the king what his green color crystal meant. Rose is still in hearing distance, so everyone is terrified by what's about to happen. Usato confirms that his ball is green, and Rose tells the king that she will be borrowing the boy. The king decides that he must act quickly and urgently tells Welchie to get Usato away from her. Wedgie uses some kind of bubble magic to quickly get him out of there, but Rose instantly takes off after him. Welchie sends our non-hero sky high, but Rose is able to get to him almost immediately. She is crazy powerful as she destroys the bubble and rapidly captures Usato. Everyone is left with their mouths open from shock like a bunch of guppy fish, and Rose tells the king that she will turn the boy into a full-fledged healing magic user. Wedgie can't handle what will happen moving forward, so she faints, and the king begs Rose to stop. He knows that she has been searching for other healing magic users, but he tries to explain that Usato was really dragged into this by accident. His useless words go completely ignored as the two are already gone. Back in the castle, Usato's useless new friends have just been sitting on their stupid hands this entire time, but are shocked to hear that Usato was taken away. Well, G explains that his life is not going to be ended, but it's still really bad news. He was taken to the rescue team just beyond the castle town. Healing magic users are extremely rare, and the crazy lady that took him is one of them. She intends to train Usato as her subordinate. No matter how hard Suzune uses her dumb brain, she can't see how this is a problem. Luckily, Wedgie explains it to her like she is a toddler, and reveals that Rose's training methods are extremely unorthodox. At her base, Rose explains that Usato only has the potential to become a healing magic user, so that is why she brought him to the rescue team. This will be his home, and she calls on her boys. Usato is terrified by these extreme dudes, and Rose tells them that they will be looking after him. She tells them to play nice, but these guys look like lunatics and introduce themselves. Usato fears the worst in every possible situation, as he wonders if he's actually some kind of offering, and he is being sacrificed to these monsters. Rose tells them not to scare Usato, but she is the most terrifying of all. The boys try to explain that this is them being nice, but Usato doesn't think these brutes know what being nice means. Rose explains that while these meatheads are her subordinates, they are not healing magic users. There are 2 other healing magic users on the rescue team, but they usually work elsewhere. It's time to get to business, so Rose explains that she will beat the knowledge on how to use healing magic deep into his tiny little brain. Usato seems to be in a permanent state of disbelief, as every fiber of his being is telling him to stay away from this insane person. Usato uses his Sunday morning church voice to ask if he could learn from another teacher, but Rose ignores the nerd and tells him that training starts tomorrow. She tells the brute named Tong to let Usato stay in his room and instructs them to eat dinner before getting rest. These guys hit Usato with the brutal reality once she leaves, as they tell him that he is screwed. Rose will be training him herself, and she's going to put him through hell. They say hell might be the least of his worries, and the meatheads have a good laugh at our non-hero's expense. That night, Usato wonders what will happen to him, but he finally shows a bit of optimism, as he is certain that things will be okay. He might be wrong, however, as we see that not even Rose knows what will happen. When Usato wakes up, he explains that he was hoping it was all a dream. Unfortunately, it's not, and he really is in another world. Suzune and Kazuki arrive to visit him, as they heard he was abducted. Usato tells him not to worry, but he has PTSD from the day before, and he gets real depressed when he remembers that he will be starting the training from hell today. He is determined to go through with it though, since he wants to make himself useful. Suzune explains that they will begin their training as well, and they all decide to do their best. When they leave, Usato feels a bit bad for them being thrown into this situation, but quickly remembers that Suzune is having the time of her life. Regardless, Usato just hopes to grow strong enough to support the 2 heroes one day. Miss Rose startles our boy, but she points out that this isn't a prison, and he can see whoever he wishes. However, that only applies to when he is not training. She gives him a journal so he can record his daily training regimen and how he feels about it. They will have breakfast first, and Usato can't believe that the training from hell will really be starting now. After breakfast, training begins, but Usato doesn't think it's actually that bad. Rose just has him feel the mana in his body and tells him to work on drawing it out. For now, he needs to perfect sensing it, so she has him do some reading. Usato is shocked to see that he can read the language of this world, and it's because summoned heroes automatically have translation magic cast on them. Rose shows how close the demon territory is to the kingdom, and explains that this is why they are always the demon's first target. This book has a bunch of information about the demons and other races in this world, so she leaves him to do some studying. The first day of training seemed quite easy, so he is sure that he will be able to handle it. Day 2 of training is much more different than he expected. It's a lot of running, and he wonders if this is really what magic training is all about. On day 3, Usato is forced to run until his muscles are so sore that he can't move. He eventually collapses, but Rose wonders what he thinks he's doing. Usato explains that his legs won't move anymore, but she gives him a good smack, and he's shocked to realize that she healed his sore muscles. Rose keeps the intensity up by calling our boy trash, and she commands him to continue running. She tells him to run like he's going to die, and she will revive him so he can keep running. Usato knows he can't tell her how crazy she sounds, so he plans to write it in his journal. On day 4, Usato begins training with the other members, but he ends up falling behind by an entire lap. Everyone trash talks him for falling behind, but he can't talk back, so he decides that he will have to write it in his journal. Day 5 and 6 was more running, with Rose berating him. Usato's anger was building inside him, and he once again planned to give Rose hell in his journal. Just then, Usato was shocked to see the light of healing magic on his hand. Training is pretty tough, but not enough to need healing, so it goes away. On day 7, Usato ran until he thought he would die again, and Rose beat him up. She seems more angry than usual, so Usato wonders if she found out that he was dissing her in his journal. He realizes that she can't read Japanese, and wonders if she can just tell by the look on his face that he talks smack in his little diary. Rose launches him into the sky so he can start running again, and Usato vows to call her a vicious gorilla in his journal. Day 8 is more of the same, but on day 9, Usato realizes the need to heal himself. He is surprised to see that he managed to heal his entire body instead of just the part that hurt. Usato realizes that he was wrong about healing magic, and he in fact really does need it. On day 10, Usato explains that he doesn't get tired anymore, no matter how much he runs, since he can now manifest healing magic on command. He eventually gets concerned, however, as all he has been doing is running. Usato questions if he will be able to help his friends at this rate, but he knows that Rose would just punch him right in his stupid face if he tried to voice his concerns to her. Rose is upset anyway, and gives Usato another 30 laps to run. Usato decides in his mind to no longer call her Miss Rose, as she doesn't deserve any more than just being called Rose. On day 11, the training regimen gets a new addition, push-ups. Usato gets all the way up into the 800s, and Rose finally reveals why Usato is training this way. It's so he can run from his enemies as quickly as possible in battle. This way he can save his injured allies. She explains that the faster he runs, the faster he can save them. On day 12, he ran until noon, and then did push-ups into the night. On day 13, Rose caught on to the fact that Usato was starting to feel lighter, so she added weights. On day 14, Usato's lunch goes missing, and one of the meatheads admits to eating it. Usato loses his cool and finally strikes back. He has already gotten used to the weights, and he is finally starting to get the hang of training. A week later, Usato's friends come to visit him, and they're shocked to see just how much he has changed in such a short time. This kid is doing some really intense push-ups, and Rose is telling him not to whine about doing something so easy. Usato actually doesn't whine one bit, and even goes as far as to say that doing push-ups with her on his back is easy, because she is so light. Rose is amused by his riz, and tosses another stone on his back. Usato's extremely determined, so his body heals, and he's able to complete the push-up. Rose is pleased with his progress, and determines that she will be able to take him to a certain place sooner than she thought. Suzune is amazed with our boy's newly developed muscles, and Kazuki acknowledges just how brutal the training is. Some dude named Siglis is furious with Rose though, as he thinks that she is destroying Usato. Rose tells him that she does things much differently than the knights do, and she's turning Usato into her right-hand man. She needs him to train hard, since it will be a problem if he can't even handle this. Usato is surprised to hear that she wants him as her right-hand man, and she explains that it's because she likes how he just can't stand to lose. He never gives up, and most importantly, he has been able to survive her training. Usato realizes that him wanting to teach her a lesson has backfired in the worst way, and Rose tells him to take a break. The friends are told to go with some chick named Celia to take a break, and Siglis tells Rose that he was ordered to re-enlist her. He refuses to do it now though, but Rose says it doesn't matter anyway, since her right eye is totally useless. At their lunch break, Usato learns that Siglis commands the kingdom's army. He is the strongest knight in the kingdom, and he is the one teaching Usato's friends how to sword fight. Usato just now realizes that Celia is the princess, and apologizes for behaving so casually. They enjoy some kind of pie thing, and Kazuki wonders if Usato really does that type of training every day. Usato tells him that today was different, but that's only because today was easier. Kazuki explains that their training is going well, but it's not nearly as tough as Usato's. Suzune has lost her mind apparently, as she interrupts their conversation to take a look at Usato's muscles. This dude is seriously shredded now, but Kazuki settles things down by asking if the training isn't too tough for Usato. Usato admits that it's extremely tough, and he wanted to run away at first. Rose is just as scary as ever, but he doesn't want to run anymore. The training is actually starting to get fun for him, and he has realized that life there isn't that bad. Usato's friends think he is amazing, but he just explains that what he is stubborn. The two of them will have to fight one day, so he wants to be able to support them. They all joke around about how Suzune is a weirdo, and the big guy that ate Usato's lunch has made a meal to replace it. Usato clearly still has a grudge, as he begins to talk just like all the other meatheads, and they begin to argue. Usato is a real hothead now, as the argument quickly turns into a fight, and the big guy promises to knock our boy out. Usato would like to see him try, and they both start throwing hands. Celia wonders if it's okay to just watch, and Kazuki tells her that it's fine, since this seems to just be a part of Usato's daily life now. Usato has clearly acclimated very quickly, so Kazuki decides that he needs to go back to training so he doesn't get left behind. Suzune prepares to go as well, but realizes now that all three of them must have been brought to this world for a reason. That night, Usato enjoys a bath and thinks about how he needs to control his Riz better so Suzune doesn't lose her composure again. Usato realizes though that she is right, his body has changed dramatically. He has been healing his muscles over and over again after damaging them from this strenuous exercise. The result is that he has gotten shredded. However, his job will be to rescue people on the battlefield, and he questions if he has the mental fortitude to match the body he has built. The next morning, Rose informs Usato that they will be going out, and the other guys seem worried that this day has come. A guard at the gate nearly wets himself as Rose informs him that she wants to show her subordinate the outside world. He runs off to open the gate for her, and Usato thinks about how all she has to do is stand there to scare someone. Outside the gate, Usato wants to know where they are going, but Rose tells him to keep his mouth shut and follow her. They eventually arrive at the forest known as the Darkness of Linger. It's infamous for being filled with monsters, and she shockingly tells Usato not to come back until he has hunted down a grand grizzly. Usato thinks there has been a misunderstanding, as he reminds her that blue grizzlies only turn into grand grizzlies after living for 100 years. The book he read even said that just the blue grizzlies are extremely dangerous. Rose explains that he should be able to take one down easily, but Usato points out that he has only been running this entire time and has no idea how to fight. Rose doesn't give a single word of explanation though, and just launches him towards the forest. Usato begins to fall from the sky, and he panics as he will surely not survive. However, just then, his body begins to glow with his healing magic. Usato finds the determination inside himself to survive no matter what, so he uses his healing magic to brace himself for the impact. Usato can't believe that he survived, and he heals himself so he can do what Rose told him. He won't be able to go back until he does, so he tries to have a good attitude about it. He convinces himself that it shouldn't be too hard since it's only a 2-meter tall bear, but he is stunned when it appears behind him. This thing is way bigger than he thought, and even its claws are huge. Usato gets a bit confident that the bear won't be able to keep up with his speed, but he quickly finds out that it can. Usato reminds himself that he managed to survive the training from hell, and this little teddy bear is nothing compared to Rose. Usato surprisingly turns to face the bear, but Winnie the Pooh with rabies has backup. Usato runs for his life again, but calls the bears cowards for ganging up on him. Just then, Usato hears a waterfall nearby and leaps into it to escape. The bears have no choice but to leave their prey, and Usato uses the time to regather himself. All he has are some rations, a canteen, and a knife, so he wishes Rose would have gave him something he could at least start a fire with. Taking down a grand grizzly is starting to seem impossible at this point, but he will leave that depressing task for tomorrow. Usato is just glad to have survived the first day and sleeps in a pile of leaves. The next day, Usato begins the hunt and decides that he needs to learn more about his enemy. First, he needs to learn where it lives, and he finds some scratch marks on a tree. Just then, Usato prepares for the fight of his life as he hears rustling in some bushes, but it turns out to just be an innocent little bunny. It's actually a monster that looks like a rabbit, and it seems to be injured. Usato heals the thing up and acts like a bunny whisperer as he tells it to be more careful. Usato continues the hunt, but the bunny follows him. He tries to explain that he's searching for a dangerous monster, so it should leave, but the dumb little bunny doesn't listen. This thing just won't leave him alone, so he begins to wonder if the rabbit's trying to show him where the grand grizzly is. Usato follows the little guy, and it leads him right to the bears. Usato plans to monitor them without being discovered, and notices that they seem to be a family. Usato takes a break to get some unclean water that he's a bit skeptical of, and he's shocked to see that the bunny still hasn't left yet. He goes back to continue monitoring, and he's begun to think that the blue grizzlies are kind of cute. His bunny friend is pretty adorable too, so he begins to think that life in the forest is pretty good. That feeling wouldn't last long, however, as the water he drank has a severe effect on his stomach. His healing magic is taking forever to make him feel better, so he determines that he was basically poisoned by the water. A day later, Usato's trusty bunny friend shows him where some clean water is, and it's delicious. There is something wrong with Bugs Bunny though, and it seems to be because a monster is approaching. Little Bunny wasn't even scared of the Grand Grizzly, so whatever is approaching must be really dangerous. A noise can be heard in the darkness, and Usato is shocked when a giant snake appears. He is terrified by this unbelievable monster and points out that there was nothing like it in the book he read. Even without knowing anything about it, Usato can tell that it's dangerous, and there is bloodlust oozing from every inch of it. When it leaves, Usato can finally breathe again, and he decides to make it a priority to avoid that thing. 4 more days pass, but Usato can't shake an uneasy feeling he has. He has been observing the bears, but nothing has changed with them, and he can't go home without defeating the Grand Grizzly. Usato has to do it eventually, so he tells himself that he will do it tomorrow. The next day comes, but Little Rabbit doesn't want him to go. Usato gives in and decides to stay, but only until the rain stops. When it ends, Usato begins his mission and refuses to be stopped by Bunny. Usato readies himself for battle, but he is absolutely stunned when he finds that the lives of the bears have already been taken. The bite marks on the bears make it clear that the snake did it, but it didn't do it to eat. It took their lives for fun. The poor cub emerges from some rubble and tries to wake its mom up. Usato thinks about how much he hates losing, especially to Rose. On top of that, he hates the fact that his prey was stolen. As the little bear cries in agony, Usato states that what he hates worst of all is what he's looking at right now. He tells the cub to just wait right there, and he vows to get revenge for it. Usato's friends go to visit him, but are shocked to hear he has been training in the forest for 10 straight days. They think that seems a bit too long to be training out there, but the guys explain that Rose makes all the decisions. Rose isn't there though, so these useless guys have no clue what's going on. Kazuki is really worried about Usato, but Suzune thinks he should be fine since Rose wouldn't have sent him unless he was ready. On top of that, Suzune believes in Usato, and she is sure he will be back soon. Back in the forest, our boy fuels his body with some snacks and makes a spear. He asks his little bunny to take him to the snake, but makes sure to instruct it to run away right after. The bunny takes him on a long journey through the forest, and the two finally find the snake. Unfortunately, it is attacking the little cub, and Usato is upset since he told it to stay home. This snake is absolutely terrifying to look at, but Usato insists that there's nothing scarier than Rose. Usato thinks the snake looks confused when he begins his attack, but it's not, and it almost eats him. Usato counters with a stab to its eye, but he gets knocked back and must heal himself. Usato managed to blind it on one side, so he determines that it's a side he will have to attack from. This snake is insanely dangerous though, and it quickly manages to bite down on our boy's arm. Usato's in immense pain, and he is shocked to realize that the snake baited him into attacking its blind spot. Usato is furious to have been tricked, but he reveals that the arm it bit was holding his knife. Usato manages to heal his arm enough so that it can move, and stabs the snake from inside its mouth. Usato somehow managing to hold his own, but things take a real bad turn as he realizes that he has been poisoned. This is a seriously unfair fight, as the snake is both huge and poisonous, but Usato has the advantage of being able to heal himself. Getting poisoned by the water forced him to learn how to heal himself from the inside out. Usato does just that, and prepares to attack again. This snake is about to end his life with one tail swing though, but the little cub steps in to help. These two have great teamwork right off the bat, as the bear lets Usato jump off its back so he can get on top of the snake. Usato uses some foul language to call the snake stupid, and he somehow manages to land an insanely powerful punch. Usato's determined to end the battle right now, so he jams his spear further into the snake's head. He yells out as he gives it everything he has, and the little bear helps out by pinning the snake down. The snake is eventually defeated, and Usato can't believe that they actually did it. The bear seems to have taken a liking to Usato, and he points out how they got their revenge. He would like to heal the little cub, but he is using up all his mana to neutralize the venom in his body, and he can't even move. That's really bad news though, as he is shocked when the snake gets back up. Usato can't even move an inch, so the little cub tries to help him, but Usato just tells it to run away. The snake moves in to end his life, and Usato thinks about all the people in his life. He determines that this entire situation is all Rose's fault, and he yells out that she is a violent ogre. Just then, this violent ogre descends from the sky and shockingly stomps right on the snake. Her angry attitude causes her to call the snake an idiot, when Usato wonders how she knew to come help him. Rose reveals that the bunny named Kokoro told her. Kokoro is her pet, and she told it to watch over Usato. Usato explains that the rabbit showed up injured and looking for help, but Rose just points out that he is a sucker. Kokoro put on an act to gain his trust, and he fell for it. Rose was always nearby in case she needed to step in, but she planned to intervene as little as possible. However, she never thought that the giant snake would appear. This snake was created by the Demon Lord's army, and Siglis failed to finish it off during the last invasion. She never thought it would be able to defeat a Grand Grizzly though, since they are strong enough to defeat a full unit of elite troops. Usato can't believe she wanted a rookie like him to take one out, and thinks about how much of a monster she is. Rose explains that she actually never expected Usato to win, and the goal was for him to gain experience fighting something much stronger than him. Things started to get interesting with Usato though, so she decided to let him keep going to see what would happen. Usato's quick to point out that he almost lost his life, and his little cub backs him up. It has clearly taken a liking to him, and Usato remembers that its parents aren't alive anymore, so it's all alone. Usato gets his new buddy to calm down, and Rose realizes that she was right, Usato's a lot like her. She angrily informs the bear that he will be coming with them, and he will carry the loser that couldn't even lose his life properly. Usato wonders if the cub is really okay with everything, but this is one mature bear, as it's ready to go. They prepare to head back, but Usato can't help but think how terrifying Rose is, as she carries him and the bear over her shoulder. Rose reveals that she heard what he said about her being an ogre. She then terrifies her boy as she explains that he won't be getting any sleep tonight. They head home and Rose reveals that Usato actually passed the test with flying colors. Usato's surprised to hear that he is now qualified for something, and Rose explains that he's now qualified to stand beside her on the battlefield. He still hasn't mastered the basics, but Usato definitely has what it takes. He has the ability to withstand pain, physical aptitude, and a strong mental state. The other two healers never earned that distinction, so she tells Usato that he should be proud. Usato wonders what she means when she says that they might be able to make it, and he is shocked when Rose reveals that the demon army will be attacking soon. Elsewhere, the Demon Lord wonders how preparations are going for the invasion of the Linger Kingdom. Amila, the commander of the Third Army, reports that their units have finished preparing for battle, and they will soon advance. Rose reveals that Usato will be on the front lines with her, healing the wounded, and he will be part of the vanguard. There are two other healers, but they play a different role. Usato is certain that he can't use healing magic the way she can, but Rose points out that they still have a little more time. She wants him to improve before then, and Usato wonders if he can really do it. Back with the Demon Lord, he explains that he will have Amila lead the army. Despite their previous success, the Linger Kingdom has managed to escape their grasp before. Amila vows to do her best to win the battle, and she is dismissed. Just then, the Demon Doctor mocks Amila for being nervous in front of the Demon Lord. Amila hates this nerd and tells him to focus on his work. His name is Hiraluk, and he reveals that he just completed the newest demon-made monster prototype. It's highly venomous and has a large body with sharp fangs. He calls it Demon-Made Monster Prototype 72, Baljanak. Hiraluk's last prototype went missing the last time they attacked the Linger Kingdom. It ran away after being wounded by the enemy known as Siglis. Hiraluk promises that this prototype is way stronger, and Amila hopes so, since there are people far more troublesome than Siglis in the Linger Kingdom. They refer to these people as kidnappers, those that stand on the battlefield but don't fight. They carry their injured away without the enemy even realizing it, and minimize their own casualties by doing so. Their boss is a healer who runs around all over the front lines, healing people on the spot. We see that this is Rose, and Amila is infuriated by her. This is because Rose is a top-notch fighter, and she holds a deep grudge against the Demon Lord. Amila vows to eliminate her, but Hiraluk points out that she can't go into battle herself this time, since she is now the commander. She is well aware, so that is why she plans to send a certain demon, the immortal mage of darkness, the Black Knight. Back home, we see that Usato finally gets to enjoy the comforts of a bed again. He goes to feed his little bear buddy some fruit and snacks on some himself. The little cub is kind of a jerk as he takes Usato's apple, and Usato finds that the traitor is there as well. This rabbit toyed with his pure and innocent heart, so he stops himself from thinking about how cute it is. He eventually gives in to its adorableness though, and feeds it some fruit. Rose arrives and is amused to hear that Usato named the bear Blurrin. Blue for its color, ribbed from the word grizzly. This kid is a total mess as he thinks the name is a good one, and Blurrin accidentally chomps on his hand. Rose informed the kingdom about the bear, so they have been allowed to keep it. Rose will allow it to stay there, but informs Blurrin that he will have to earn his keep. Blurrin is terrified of her just like everyone else, and Usato wonders what she will have him do. Moments later, we see what she had planned as Usato is carrying Blurrin. This will be his simulation training, and Usato is to think of the bear as someone who needs to be rescued. Rose has him start running, but it's a breeze for our boy. It's basically just running with a bit more weight, so as long as he manages his mana, he will be fine. Rose demands that he run faster, since the wounded won't last if he takes too long. Just then, Tong appears out of nowhere, and so does another one of the meatheads. They chase after him, and reveal that Rose told them to simulate the battlefield. The others are waiting to ambush him as well, so they tell Usato to stay focused. 1 hour later, Usato's dodging one of the meathead's special stink water, and avoiding the attacks of some other guy. 3 hours later, he is hopping over logs, and 4 hours later, he is avoiding stomping all over the trader. Eventually, Usato starts feeling strange, and begins to wonder what is happening to him. He collapses, and Rose explains that he is at his limit of endurance on the battlefield. Humans feel exhaustion from nervousness, fear, and impatience. That's why he ran out of strength faster than normal. To get better, all he can do is get used to it. Acquire the mental fortitude and decisiveness that never falter in the face of fear. Rose heals him but tells him to spend the rest of the afternoon running around the castle town. Usato is shocked to have to do more, and Rose reminds him to carry Blurrin. As he runs, everyone is shocked to see a blue bear. Usato expected this though, since even though Blurrin is friendly, he is still a monster. The people seem to realize something though, and become eerily calm. Blurrin leads Usato to some fresh fruit, but our boy doesn't have money. Usato learns that this green fruit is called a peffle, and asks the merchant why everyone is so calm when he is carrying a monster on his back. She reveals that it's because they know that Usato is on the rescue team because of his clothes. They see scary looking men from the rescue team all the time, so they have gotten used to it. This makes a lot of sense now, since if those goons' faces don't scare them, then nothing will. The nice lady lets them have a peffle for free, so Blurrin shoves Usato's hand in his mouth. When they leave, some girl named Amako shows interest in the boy from the rescue team. Usato decides to go visit his friends, and doesn't notice when some guy tries to get his attention. Usato eventually figures it out, and has to heal the guy. This guy's name is Orga, and he reveals that he is one of the rescue team's healers. Orga is surprised to learn that Usato was summoned with the heroes, and Usato explains that he's been so busy training that he almost forgot himself. Orga is impressed that Usato is able to keep up with Rose's training, since it was impossible for him and his sister. His sister is the other healer, and she is 5 years younger than him. They run a clinic in the city, and use healing magic to heal the citizens. Orga collapsed earlier because he is terrible at healing himself, and much better at healing others. They are still part of the rescue team though, so they work under Captain Rose in times of need. Usato wonders what war will be like for them, so Orga explains that Tong and the others bring the injured soldiers to the rear. That is where he and his sister heal them. This guy is shocked when Usato tells him that Rose wants him on the vanguard, and Usato wonders if he can really handle that. Orga explains that the knights and heroes who fight on the front lines are in the greatest danger, so Usato immediately thinks of his friends. When they fall injured and get left behind, normally all they can do is wait for death. However, having a rescue team allows them to be saved. The job is a dangerous and exhausting one, but Rose wouldn't choose someone she didn't completely trust. Before Orga leaves, he asks Usato not to hate Rose too much. He knows she isn't the nicest person, but he explains that it's more like she is just clumsy with people. Usato surprises him though when he reveals that he has never hated Rose, even if he does have unresolved issues with her. When Usato leaves, Orga expresses relief that Rose has finally found someone. Orga's sister Uru arrives, and he tells her that he just met someone interesting. They will meet each other soon enough, and he is sure that Uru will like him. At the castle, Usato is allowed to enter with Blurrin because Rose vouched for him. Usato thanks the guard, and he thinks about how a lot of people seem to trust Rose. Usato runs past a bunch of people training and finds Suzune. She's glad to see him, but wonders what the blue thing is on his back. Usato tells her about his forest adventure, but she just wants to know if she can touch the bear. Usato lets her and promises to heal her if she gets bitten. Suzune considers herself the heroine of their little story, so she is certain that animals are supposed to love her. She is very wrong, however, as Blurrin hilariously slaps her hand away. Usato tries to make her feel better by saying that Blurrin is just shy and has her try calling his name. Suzune politely asks Blurrin to be friends, but he just eats her hand instead. Usato doesn't make her feel better at all this time and suggests that she might have a tainted soul. Usato has Blurren release her, but Blurren just starts eating his hand now, and Suzune wonders if Usato has a tainted soul as well. After their little comedy routine, Usato notices that Suzune's hands are all roughed up, and she explains that it's from going hard during training. Usato reminds her that she needs to treat wounds properly, so he heals her. Suzune is amazed, and she wonders if Usato really came just to see her. Usato points out that he came to see his friends, but that's obviously not what she wanted to hear. Suzune reveals that Kazuki went outside the kingdom to gain experience fighting monsters with Siglis and the others. Siglis informs Kazuki that the Demon Lord will attack soon, and they will surely bring more powerful forces this time. Siglis points out, however, that they have him and Suzune now, so the troops' morale is soaring because they are heroes. Siglis is certain that they will be victorious, but Kazuki seems to have doubts. He gathers himself though and promises to do his best. Just then they encounter some monsters and prepare for battle. When Kazuki returns, it will be Suzune's turn to gain experience. Usato can tell already that she will have the time of her life, but she wishes he would worry about her. Usato says he does, but Suzune points out he didn't really seem to mean it, and they have a good laugh. Usato leaves and Suzune wonders if Usato even realized how comfortable he has gotten with her. As Usato runs, he thinks about how everyone is preparing for the war, so he wants to be able to help them. In his old world, all he could do is admire people who could do things he couldn't. However, he is not that weak person anymore. That night, Rose is glad to hear that Usato's training is going well, but he explains that he still needs to run more to get used to it. Usato stops her from leaving as he wants to talk about what she said earlier. He points out that he barely survived against the snake monster, so he was terrified when she mentioned the Demon Lord's army. He didn't want to set foot on the battlefield, but today he found a feeling even stronger than fear. He realizes now that he can fight, but he refuses to take any lives. He vows to save anyone he can, and declares that it's because he is part of the rescue team. That's exactly what Rose wanted to hear, since they are going out there to save people. His job is to snatch up the wounded that the enemy is about to finish off. It's also to keep those at death's door alive, even if it means risking his life. Rose wants him to keep spitting up those ideals, since that's how the rescue team must be. This was the first moment Usato actually felt like he was part of the rescue team. The next morning, Rose reveals that the king has sent a message. He wants Usato to head out so he can join Suzune's training outside the castle. Usato is surprised, but we see that Suzune couldn't be more ready. Thanks for watching my recap. Sign up to my free newsletter if you want to show some support to the channel. Link is in the description.